Welcome to Ninon Speaks. I'm Ninon de Verderosa, and I have a fabulous guest. Now, my guest is very intriguing, and the reason being is that I was supposed to meet her in Vegas. She was just in Vegas, and unfortunately, our paths didn't meet. But I met Elisa Brown, who is my guest today. I met her, I don't know, 5, 6 years ago, maybe more than that. I had her on another show. And so now we're back again. It's taken a little time to come back. Elisa, how are you?
I'm just doing very well, and I'm sorry that our paths didn't cross. We're going to have to correct that going
Oh,
forward.
yeah, we're going to have those crossing either in New York or either in Vegas again, whichever one.
Okay, come on down for my show. We'll try to make it happen here.
Oh, when's your show?
It's June 26th at 3 o'clock. It's a Sunday, and it's the Hackensack Performing Arts Center, and it's a totally original show that I wrote at the request of my late father.
So oh, how wonderful.
It's the culmination of everything I've ever done and everything Daddy always wanted me to do. And the name of the show is Hoodwinked from Heaven. And Daddy always wanted me to be a country singer, being from Texas. That was his favorite music. But I fell in love with Mozart when I turned 15, and I just never looked back.
No, you certainly didn't look back. Let me just inform everybody, our audience out there, thank you for tuning in and thank you for being there. And also Maria Perez, who's my producer from social media shows. But Elisa is an opera singer, and she's got the most, we might get a few little lines out of her. I don't know if she'll do that, but I'll prepare her right now so she can think about it.
Well,
but you are an opera singer, right?
Your show, I'd be happy to do that.
Yes, absolutely. But you're an opera singer, correct?
Yes, I'm a classically trained singer, and got my training at the Cleveland Institute of Music. And then from college, I moved to New York City to pursue my career as a professional singer. And with a lot of luck and perseverance, I managed to do so and have a career.
You certainly. So you're saying, because when you were very young, you moved to New York. So you have always been in New York.
I came right after college, so I don't know about always, but I came to New York, and then I had to take diction classes to learn how to speak English correctly because I had a Texas accent, and they said people aren't going to hire you with that accent. So I had to learn how to speak. I wouldn't say New Yorkese, but something that wasn't quite as regional as my East Texas accent was.
Did you have a strong, I would never have thought of you have to change an accent to sing, but I guess depending on what you're singing.
Well, now, if I talked the way that I did when I was growing up, my family does, that just doesn't really lend itself very well to opera and Italian, and French and all that. So it's not, the placement's wrong. So I had to.
You don't sound like an opera singer, and especially coming from England and coming from Europe, because we have very definition of who everybody is and how they sort of conduct themselves. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but that's just how it is.
Well, and folks oftentimes will misconstrue a Southern accent or a Texas accent with a lack of intellectual acumen. So
shame on them.
That's exactly right. But I could use it to my advantage as well, so it all worked out well in the end.
Absolutely. I would imagine it would be great if you were an actress. Are you an actress as well? Have you ever done any acting? Because you can change your voices.
Yes, I've done a lot of voiceover work. I've done a lot of acting. I've done a lot of musical theater and operetta. And in fact, the show that I'm doing is a lot of singing, dancing, and telling the stories from family stories. And it's a full 2-hour show, a Broadway style show. And I'm the only performer other than my band. So yes, I do a lot.
You are the only, it's a single person performance?
Yes, it's a one-woman show.
It's a one-woman show. I've always admired those one-person shows, and I think that's absolutely amazing. How long has it taken you to sort of get all this together?
Oh, well, I was supposed to perform the show in 2020, but because of COVID, it got postponed. And I was going to perform it in New York City at an off-Broadway theater, the Triad, but everything got postponed. And I was very fortunate in that I can do it at the Hackensack Performing Arts Center, which is a state-of-the-art theater in Hackensack, New Jersey. It's just a lovely off-Broadway size theater. To put together a show like this, it's about, for me, it took about 5 years to get it all together, because not only writing the music was the easy part, but creating a script and putting together a crew, and then raising the funds, because I'm doing the research development. I own the show completely, and putting that all together. And it's a one-woman show with a 25. I have 25 people on my payroll, so it's one woman, but it's an ensemble effort.
That absolutely is, but also to keep all that together and to just have one person performing. It's like you've got this whole gang against you. You've got just you on stage.
What's wonderful about doing an original show is that no one knows what you're supposed to be saying. So even if I make a mistake, it's no one knows.
Who cares? Who cares? Right. It's so funny. I always say that to people that are in bands. I always say when they make a musical problem or they make a mistake, I said only the band knows it. Nobody else in the audience ever knows whenever you're making a mistake on anything. That could be in film, with lines, with anything, and people get so nervous and worried about it. I say, why? It's like my show. If I make a mistake, I don't never make a mistake. I'm perfect.
That's exactly right. And if you just roll with it, people think, oh, it was supposed to be that way. I've had horrible things happen on stage, and you just keep walking along. Or I remember a show, the props, the scrim just fell down, and so the stage set just collapsed. And so I just stepped through the doorway and just kept singing, because what else are you going to do? And it's just always something like that happens.
There's always something happening. But I think the greatest thing about a performer is to continue. You're going to have the roof falling in. And I always remember I was filming at Beverly Hills High School, and there was always a lot of noise going on along, and they used to say, well, you don't ever get distracted. And I said, well, I can't. I've got my audience. I can't. I've got to keep going. I've got to pretend nothing is happening. And that's part of the energy. Now, when you went to put this together 5 years ago, did you do this? Was your father still alive then?
Okay, this is what happened. When my dad was diagnosed with Alzheimer's in his early 80s. My father had an eidetic memory such that he never forgot anything, and he was a brilliant inventor. So the thought of him losing his memory seemed impossible, but the disease progressed as it does for everyone. And eventually he wasn't able to come to New York to see me sing in Carnegie Hall. And when that happened, he asked me if I could write some country and pop songs for him, just specifically for him, that he could listen to before he moved on to heaven. And he said he didn't want to forget me, and he thought the music would keep my memory alive, because he knew he called it getting lost in his own mind. So you can't really say no to a request like that.
Especially your father as well.
Oh, I adored my daddy. And so daddy didn't really know where he was, but he knew where he had been. And so I relied on his foundation memories from way back. And what I did for inspiration for each song is I chose stories from our family history, way back all the way to my great grandmother, that were embedded in my father's memory. And then I wrote songs that were reminiscent of styles that he liked, like Bob Wills and the Texas Playboys, or Jimmy Buffett, Wasted Away in Margaritaville, or those types of sounds that I knew he would like. So I wrote these songs for him, and I made a professional recording because I thought that was befitting. And he remembered all the stories, and he could sing along with the choruses. And most importantly, he never forgot any of us right into the last day of his life. He knew all of us. Those songs kept his memory and our memory alive, and we were able to converse with him. Even if it was talking about days of yore, he could still be a part of the family. And so after I'd written the songs, I performed them here in New York, and a Tony Award winning and Moliere Award winning producer, a friend of mine, said, oh, this show these songs have legs. You should make a show out of it. So when I told my daddy, he said, oh, please do that, because your mission is to help others through the arts. And even if they just feel good for 2 hours, this would be the kind of show you should do, because it seems like it used to be that it was one for all and all for one, but nowadays it's every man for himself. And this show might help people remember they're connected. So I started to write the show. And unfortunately, my father moved on to heaven before I had a chance to finish it and perform it. But Daddy always wanted me to be a country singer, and here I am at the end of my, at the latter part of my career, and I'm singing these country and pop songs for folks. And I realize he got his wish, and that's the name of the show. Is I've been hoodwinked from heaven.
Yeah.
And so that's the name of the show, and it's a real cute little show. A lot of, like, I dance,
So
do all my country
was
stuff.
he,
It's a lot of
was
fun.
was he able to be part of you producing this show and putting this show together? Because it sounds like he was part of it, that he could remember a lot of these songs. Did he sing the songs along with you and sort of
Yes.
memorize his past?
Daddy knew the original songs. He knew the new songs that he didn't know them. By that point, he could not remember those songs, the songs themselves, but he would remember the stories, and you could talk to him about that. But then, I called him up I was going to go down and spend his birthday with him, and he sounded very feeble, and I asked him, do you have a cold? And he said, no, I'm dying and you need to come home. So I got on a plane, and that's exactly what was happening. And so my father wanted me to sing Ave Maria and the Lord's Prayer at his funeral, which I did, and I recorded that for him prior. And so he was listening to my recording of Ave Maria when he moved on to heaven. So, we were very connected that way. So
you were very dedicated to your father, and it seems like, the rest of the last days he had, that you really dedicated your life to him, of the love you had for him.
Oh, we were a very close-knit family. My mama and I were best
Where's your mom in all this? Is your mom around? Where is
she? She moved on to heaven last a year ago on St. Patrick's Day. She had 92 and a half.
So they were very close, huh, when they moved on.
Oh, Daddy moved in 2017 and she in 2020, and my eldest brother in 2021, and my eldest brother in 2020. So they're all there together, and I'm sure they'll be present in spirit at the opening of the show
on the 26th of June.
Yes, absolutely. And I made a little commercial that I sent over to Maria. I don't know if she received it or not.
I'm sure she's going to put it in here. I know she can't butt in, but she probably will put part of it in when we put this out there, because it's not going live at the moment. And then when she puts it together, she'll probably put it in there. But you mentioned Carnegie Hall. Now, you appeared at Carnegie Hall because that's, being English, we have our opera house in England, in London, which is, Albert Hall, Prince Albert Hall. And we have, a lot of, the singers there as well. But with your Carnegie Hall in America, it's so well known, but it's a tough place to get into and to perform and everything else. And I know your talent over the years, what you've done. What was it like actually achieving this incredible performance?
For me, it was a real dream come true. It's just absolutely a flawless place. The acoustics are flawless. But what was even better is my mission is to help others through the arts. And so I was able to perform for the inaugural performance of the New York Women's Philharmonic. And we were promoting the work of Dr. Lois Lee in Children of the Night. And so this was a concert that would raised awareness for her organization in Los Angeles. She has personally, with her organization since 1979, rescued over 10,000 children from child prostitution. So not only was it a wonderful event for me to be able to sing with orchestra in this venerable hall, but to do so for such a worthy cause. So it was really a double blessing.
Absolutely. What was her name?
Dr. Lois Lee.
I know her.
She
was at Cedars. She was at Cedars.
I believe so.
She had I had her on my show, because I think, wait a second, I had her on my show. She had a red hot, I forget what it was called, but it was a red hot phone, and teenagers could call 24 hours a day. In fact, I believe I honored her in one of my presentations. Dr. Lois Lee, an amazing woman. Wow.
She is so lovely, and she's kept in touch. She follows my career. When she comes to New York, we get together. She is just a kind and wonderful, brilliant woman dedicated to eradicating sex trafficking, especially for young children. She's amazing.
She's absolutely. When the next time you talk to her, I'll see how she can come on my show.
I'll ask her.
Yeah, ask her. I'd love that, because I think I have her phone number. I'm sure I have it somewhere, but I would love to have her, because she's such a she just gave so much for nothing. She just gave her heart and gave her soul to these children, because she felt so badly for them, and it's getting worse, not better, but at least she's helping.
Oh, she's doing tremendous, and she's got a documentary coming out very soon. In fact, I can share her number with you and let her know. And it's coming out on one of the major documentary platforms. And so I'm sure that
share my number with her, and then we can give her publicity as well and put it out there and put the whole thing and help her, because I'd love to do that. Now, back with you, you started obviously opera. Did you win a scholarship, or did you go to learn how to sing opera or into the arts? How did all that work for you?
I went to the Cleveland Institute of Music to receive my bachelor's, and I had some monies offered to me for scholarship, and I won some awards and competitions that allowed me to come to New York and to sing with, at that time it's no longer in existence, but the New York Bach Aria Society. And so being a young singer, my voice was well suited to the music of Bach and Mozart and, the more leggero styles. And so I started out with them. And so then I had a fair amount of luck that way. So I was very fortunate, because New York is a really tough market.
I'm not going to say you had luck. I personally don't think you had luck. I think you had talent.
Oh, there's a lot of people with talent, Nina. It's just they you got to be in the right place at the right time. But what I did learn with my training, I would learn my part and everybody's part, and I would come in before I would be ready to start. If anything went wrong, I could jump right in. I didn't offer an opinion unless I was asked, and then I had one. You have to learn, it's the business of show, and the director's in charge, and you just sit there, be quiet, and do your job when you're asked. And so
you also know your job. You have to know what you're doing. You have to know, if you're in the right theater, if you're singing in the right way they want, because it's always what they want. And it's
that's
not just what correct. You have, it's what they perceive.
That's correct.
Yeah,
and that's a tough one, and you don't really learn those things in conservatory or what have you. You learn that really in the School of Hard Knocks. But once again, my father was very instrumental. He said, just keep your mouth closed. Just sit and listen and learn and watch what other people are doing, and don't make the mistakes that they're making. So it wasn't that I was so brilliant. It was that I had a brilliant father who really offered me some terrific guidance.
No wonder you dedicated this play, this opera. What exactly are you calling this?
It's a country cabaret.
The country cabaret. Country is very, very much, I always remember when I lived in England, I used to love the country, and I still love the country music. It's country music is kind of, they sing about their life story. It's a little bit like rapping, when rappers, they talk about where they've not the same. It's a story.
Opera buffo was the country music of its day, and that was where they would sing about what was going on. These were the funny stories and what have you. So country music was like that. It started out as hillbilly music, and then they called it country and western. It was a marketing idea to call it country and western. But my father liked the old school country. So this is a show that's very nostalgic. So it goes back to the old school style country singing, not the modern day country.
And is there a big difference in that? Because the old day was more of, they did it more naturally.
That's right.
The stages weren't so big. There was not a great big orchestra. You could just be out there with your guitar and sitting and singing along there.
I have a 6-piece band because we're, a lot of this is have bluegrass and what have you, but there's very little stagecraft. There's not a lot of, sound and light effects. You're exactly right. It's all telling the story. It's, very straightforward, but I love it. I always did enjoy it. And I actually did a lot of singing and made money that way. Whenever I was low on funds and didn't have any money coming in with the classical singing, I would go and sing at a club, and I would do these country songs, Patsy Cline and what have you. And I had been doing that. So it's held me in good stead throughout my career.
It certainly has. And of course, it's something that your father really wanted you to do, and you are doing it now. I just feel bad that he's not been able to see you perform to do that. But he's probably seen you have performed many times.
Oh, Daddy came to everything. And that's why when he couldn't come to Carnegie Hall, because he had sundowners, which is he would become agitated in the afternoon, and he had to be in a quiet place with people he knew. And New York City
Oh,
didn't
wow.
really
Didn't
put the
have that.
so he was very remorseful, and so that's when he asked me to write some songs for him. Then I did a show. I had a show on PBS called The Heart of Art. It was with Conscious Evolution Media,
Yeah.
and so he would watch that on online. But then it got to where it was too complicated, and he couldn't figure out how to do it. And my mom had Alzheimer's too, so then it became a little bit more difficult for them to follow what I was saying.
Yeah.
So they would play these songs every single day, and they would sing along and then have wonderful conversations. So it was a great gift. I was able to give back to him a lot of the love that he gave to me in the end of his life. So it really meant a lot to me.
Not to you. What about your mom? You don't talk too much about your mother. You know, I know that we have this kind of father and daughter thing, because I had that with my dad, and we all seem to have that. But what about your mom?
I am my mother's namesake daughter. My middle name is Joe. It's Elizabeth Joe, and my mother was Alma Joe, and she was absolutely gorgeous. She was a brilliant businesswoman, one of the top real estate brokers in the country at the time. She was flipping houses before that was a thing.
Flipping.
She was amazing. And she just lived every minute of her life to the fullest. And we spoke every single day. She would come up and visit. We'd go on shopping expeditions. We'd take trips together. Mom and Dad and I we were just like a triple threat there. We were really close, thick as thieves.
How wonderful. You know, you don't have much of that this day and age, but with you, and I think this has made you progress in the way you've progressed as to being, you have, I mean, you're very well known, you're very sought out there, but you're very humble still. You're very sort of humble. And I've always loved that about you, of how humble you are in the degree of life where you're at, because you've done so much. You were at Carnegie Hall. What other great performances sort of stick in your mind, and you kind of go out on stage and you've got, you know, this incredible audience?
The largest audience I ever sang for was in China, and it was 10,000 people.
Oh my goodness.
And that is surreal. It's completely surreal because there's so many people you can't take it in. And it was outdoors in the Taihang Mountains, and it was a global a broadcast. So it went out to, I can't even tell you how many millions of people around the world. But what was extraordinary about it is that the Chinese government had military personnel on the cliffs surrounding us with rifles. They were pointing at us with guns. I guess
delightful.
Yeah, I've never sung at gunpoint.
And my next note will be.
yeah, I could hit those high notes really well. But that was such an amazing performance because I've never sung for that many people, and they were a beautiful audience. They were really lovely, and so that was quite memorable. I sang down in South America in Chile, in Santiago de Chile, in the Palacio Cusino, with orchestra in one of the most gorgeous settings. It was something like out of an Oprah Winfrey show, with the chandeliers hanging down, and everybody had their own personal waiter and what have you. And I was regaled on the stage, and they really treated me like I was hot stuff. So it was really nice. And then I've had other situations where I'm singing in some downtrodden, horrible place that's war torn, and there's bullet holes everywhere, and I'm singing to raise money for the orphans. And so every opportunity to sing is a blessing. And so I enjoy all of them. Some of them are more spectacular than others.
But when you were singing in China and you were singing out in the open, and because I know how powerful your voice is, did your voice echo through the mountains and through sort of China? I mean,
actually, that was the quote that they wrote about me in China, was that my voice echoed throughout the Taihang Mountains. They were very lovely with their reviews. And my song, I sang the Ave Maria, and also a new song called We Are So Much More. And they just loved it. It was really very kind of them, the things that they said, that it would long resonate with peace throughout the mountain. So,
well, that's because of you and what you performed and what you did. Can you give me a couple of bars of Ave Maria?
Okay. Well, it's the Bach Gounod. It's the one.
Okay.
It's the Ave Maria. Gratia plena Dominus tecum benedicta tu. Of course, I'm taking it down about 3 octaves because if I sing,
Yeah, otherwise we'd be blowing out.
I can't do that high. I learned my lesson on that one. I just sound like a mosquito. So
The sound system will be. So you've got this now with this what you put together. Are you thinking of making a movie out of it or putting in?
This is the point. I'm doing this one performance. It's called a showcase, as you know, and I'm having it filmed. My filmmaker does the videos for Alicia Keys, and he works with Spike Lee. He's brilliant, and so he will be filming it, and I'll make it into a promotional video. And I'd like to take the show on the road, and it's appropriate for off Broadway is anything between 100 and 499 seats. That's the designation. Broadway is 500 and more. Off Broadway is 100 to 499, and off is 99 and under. I wouldn't make any money if I did it for off Broadway, but around a 200 to 300 to 400 seat theater would be an appropriate size. And because I own the show and it has a very simple light and sound plot, I can do it with a TV track. I can do it with minimal instrumentation. It's a very affordable show to take on the road and do in smaller venues or even in something that's state of the art. And that's what I want to do. I want to take it on the road and eventually take it to off-Broadway. I'd love to do it in Vegas, but I think they only have gigantic theaters, like with
Well, we do have the Smith Center, and I believe in the Smith Center. You might want to get in touch with the Smith Center. They have, I believe they have a very large theater. Write it down, Smith Center. It's very, the Smith Center is very much a Vegas place. It's not on the Strip, but a lot of the people that live in Vegas, they go there all the time. We have shows there. Oh, we have a cabaret room, but that's very small. It wouldn't be big enough for what you're doing. But I believe if you get in touch with them, they would absolutely open arms. I would think they would just love you to come into town. And even if they can't, I'm sure there's many, we have so many hotels and theaters in the hotels that, they're very large seating. I think you would be amazing there, but and sort of, obviously how many people do you travel with your orchestra then?
Well, okay, so that's what's lovely about this. I'd probably keep the same music director, but then I can get a pickup band because this is not Tchaikovsky. This is country music, and so I know a lot of people around the country, so I could put together a band in no time. It wouldn't take any time for
any part of the country.
Anywhere in the country.
Anybody in the country, also probably in the world. Have you ever performed in Italy? God, you would be amazing in Italy.
I haven't performed in Italy, not at all. I've done a lot in Spain, and I did some things in France. But I went to Italy and I ate some wonderful food, and I said how wonderful the food is. But I didn't get.
But they have the opera house there is the old opera house is absolutely incredibly fabulous. It just would be amazing. Do you do all your own bookings? And it seems like you're very independent, Elisa. Very.
Well, I'm very fortunate in that my manager happens to be my husband. And
oh, how great! Oh, no wonder it works.
Well, it took a while. It's a very funny story. He's an immigration attorney, and as I met him because he was my ex-husband's immigration attorney. So I was married before to a Frenchman. That didn't work out, and then when that didn't work out, then Jan just swooped right in and swept me off my feet. And he wanted to help me with bookings and what have you, because it's very difficult to represent yourself.
Yes, it is.
I understand the business end of it, but you can't come to people and say, "Oh, it sounds so fabulous." You just
not really. No,
you can't really do that. Self-praise stinks. So you have to have someone to advocate, and also who can take the criticism, because he won't take it to heart the way I would. And my husband happens to be very handsome, and he's so charming, and he had no idea what he was doing. So he would just walk right in and say, "Oh, you really need to hire my wife. Wait till you hear her sing." And he got me great jobs. And in fact, he got me my break on off Broadway. He's just charming. So over the years, he's learned what to do. And so he's the person who will promote me. And I don't have to do that.
it sounds like he's just as excited as you are of with putting all this together and doing it. And, you know, I'm looking at it that you've taken 5 years to do it, and you're just doing this one performance after 5 years.
Mhm.
I mean, that has got to be an incredible feeling when you, I mean, I just don't know how you're going to feel on June 26th in the afternoon, which is a Sunday afternoon, so it's a
Right.
good afternoon. I don't know how you're going to feel going out there after this, all this time of preparing for it. It's got to be amazing.
Well, I can tell you that I don't practice. I actually perform every day, and I imagine that I'm performing in front of an audience. So I've done this show hundreds and hundreds of times already. And then I do what's called armchair rehearsal, where I sit and I close my eyes and I visualize vividly, so that I've already been there. And then the audience will add in that level of excitement. And I've been rehearsing with my wonderful band. Oh my gosh, top musicians. They're so amazing. And it just is more fun. I haven't had this much fun since I was 4 years old. I
Oh,
really,
how wonderful.
it's,
So
I
you're
feel
like
like I'm skip happy.
you're recreating your life.
Yes, I am. I'm skip happy, you
Yeah,
know, and I talk about things that happened with my daddy and me when I was a little girl, and funny things that happened with the grandparents and my siblings that were memorable, that, and daddy really remembered all of those stories because that was so far back in his foundation memories that they remained intact.
yeah.
What's wonderful about music is it's really medicine for the mind, and it gives a cognitive boost to people who suffer with Alzheimer's and dementia. And I was lucky enough to work with a renowned sound healer by the name of Barry Goldstein, who was a Grammy Award-winning record producer. And he was the person who produced my first CD, the Ave Maria Experience, which is the 10 different versions of the Ave Maria. And we implemented certain resonance and frequencies and what have you that are very healing and therapeutic. And I started to study these things, not knowing that this would be something that I would be using for my father's all these years later. And I studied Jonathan Goldman with sound healing, musicophilia with Oliver Sacks. There's a book called This Is Your Brain on Music by Daniel Levitin. And so I delved into sound healing because this is something I was doing intuitively.
Yeah.
But I learned that there was a language for it. I had no idea. But the magic component, even though you can talk about all these things technically and this frequency and that.
Alisa, with, you know, you're explaining all these incredible stories and everything, and how you've worked it and how you've done it. How powerful do you think opera singers are right now? You've traveled, you've done from school, from college, all the way through. This has been your work. This has been your talent. How is it going now? Is the younger generation still doing this?
Oh, yes, I would say that American singers have probably the finest vocal techniques. They're really terrific. And but opera has changed its character. When I started singing back years ago, we just parked and barked. That's kind of all you did. You weren't expected to learn how to do all these elaborate dances and what have you, because you had to maintain your instrument. You're a breathing instrument, and it was very difficult. So opera has changed over the years, and it's opera theater, and it's attracted young singers who would perhaps go into musical theater or operetta. So it has a different feel for it, and so people have an appetite to hear something new. So there's a lot of different types of new operas. For me personally, I like the old
opera. Yeah.
That's what I prefer. And so that wouldn't be for me, but for young singers, it's very challenging and it's extremely competitive, but there's a lot of wonderful venues for them now that did not exist when I was when I was getting my start. So yes, it's still out there, but it's just morphed into a different type of opera than I grew up with.
And it's funny, but the reason I was asking that question was because I was at a performance a couple of weeks ago, and this young man, he's probably about 35, 40, and he comes up with, I didn't even know he could sing opera, but he comes up with this beautiful voice. But it was also, the song he was singing was very modern, and it was this kind of opera and this modern song. And I thought, well, that's different. And it's good, but it's still not the opera as we know it.
No, it's not. It's very different. When I sing pop, I don't sing it with an operatic style. I have the same technique, but I sing it with a different style because I personally think I sound like a jerk if I sound, it just doesn't sound right to me. It's not authentic to the
It's
style.
not to your earring, your hearing, because you hear yourself, don't you?
Well, actually, but you hear yourself within a bony structure. So what I hear and what you hear are not the same at all.
No, no.
Not at all. If I think I'm have this big fat sound, that's when it's not carrying at all. When it's this little tiny sound that's just on a column of air and it's compressed air, that's what carries, like a little bird.
Yeah.
The little bird, the sound carries. So what I hear and what you hear are not anywhere close.
Completely different, yeah, completely different things. Well, on all that, we've had an incredible interview to my audience out there of Elisa Brown, and an amazing story. And she's actually, what she started out with, she's actually not ending up with, but she's actually got a show and she's got a performance together. Elisa, how can anybody reach you and how can they get in touch with you to see your shows and to see what's going on?
Oh, well, I'm not a secret. Anybody can find me on my website. It's elisabrownmusic.com. And there's information about the show and my recordings, and also how you can purchase tickets, how you can buy recordings. Everything is there, and it's really easy to use because I don't want it to be complicated for anyone, so they click and go something else. So
Cool.
elisabrownmusic.com. And the show is Hoodwinked from Heaven, and I'll be wearing my best, what we say in Texas, my best bib and tucker, and I'll be talking in my Texas accent the way my daddy did. So it's a little different than.
So it's going to be something completely different. One last thing. What would you like to say to the younger generation going into opera, and what they're going to expect?
It's a lot harder than you think. And it's really a business. You truly have to know your part and everyone else's part. And you have to show up early, be ready to go, don't cause any trouble. And it's the business of show. And everything has to be on a scale from 1 to 10. So if you're not a straight up 10 on everything, you're not going to get the work. But if you're not reliable, if you're not a dependable member of the ensemble cast, I don't care if you're the star singer or whatever, you cause trouble. There's about 50 million people right behind you who are really happy to take your job. So you show up, you do your work, and you don't cause trouble. And that's a tough one because you have a great voice and you're used to being treated like all that in a bag of chips when you're in your hometown. But when you get into the real business world, nobody's interested in that. It's just, what are you going to do today? And let's get the job done. It's usually union, so it's on a very tight time schedule. So you really have to know the business end of opera. You have to know how to sing, but you have to know what's expected of you. And that one's a tough one because they don't teach it anywhere.
Nobody teaches that. Well, Elisa Brown, that's been great information for our younger generation. As you know, I'm always for the younger generation to help them any way we possibly can. But I think, yes, turn up. I know that in Vegas, a lot of our singers, a lot of our bands, a lot of our people, they half turn up, half the band turns up and half when they come in late and they do. That doesn't work. The only reason why everybody out there that makes something of themselves is because they're dedicated to their work. So take a leaf out of Elisa Brown's book and or her website. Go to her website, check it all out. And if you get a chance to actually see one of her performances, I advise it very strongly. It'll give you an idea of how it really all works. Elisa, thank you so much for coming on, and hopefully I'll see you soon. Either in New York or maybe they'll book you in Vegas.
I'm going to call that Smith.
Smith Center.
Smith Center.
Very well known.
Let my manager do that for me.
Yeah, let your man. And we all know who that is.
Yeah, my sweetie pie, my husband. Yes. Thank you so much.
I want to thank Maria Perez for putting this on and putting this all together. And obviously, it comes out of social media shows. We do this once a week, and we put this out there. And of course, it's all done through the internet, so we can give everybody a chance. We love to give people a voice in society, and this is the way we can find to do it. I started doing Ninon Speaks on Zoom on the internet because of COVID-19. So not everything is lost out of COVID-19. Everything is gained. And I think if we look at the positive, we can really move forward. Thank you for watching Ninon Speaks. We'll see you soon. Take care.
Let me tell you about the new show that I wrote at the request of my late daddy. It's called Hoodwinked from Heaven. Now, my daddy wanted me to be a country and western singer, but I fell in love with Mozart when I was 15 and I never looked back. Until my daddy got Alzheimer's and he asked me to write some country and pop songs that he could listen to before he moved on to heaven. Now, little did I know my daddy knew exactly what he was doing to get me back to singing in a pair of cowboy boots.